Welcome to Weekly News Highlights, where we catch up on everything from the past week that you need to know. Weekly News Highlights will wrap up the week every Saturday and Sunday. Let's first look back at a few keywords. South Korea's presidential office announced that President Yoon Suk Yeol plan to attend the World Economic Forum next week. Now, this is the first time in 9 years that a Korean president has taken part in the Davos Forum. He'll give an address on beefing up supply chains and combating a global economic crisis. China this week slapped 2 rounds of travel restrictions, not only on Korean nationals but also Japanese. Beijing insisted that tighter entrance rules on travelers from China are unreasonable. The international community, including the UN, stressed the importance of border screenings based on science. South Korea's foreign exchange reserves last year saw their first annual decline. Now, that's for the first time in 14 years since the global financial crisis in 2008. It was mainly due to the government's effort to slow the local currency's slide against the strong greenback. Brides get older here in South Korea, meaning marriage may not necessarily be the #1 to-do list for people, at least in their 20s. For the first time since 1990, that's over 30 years, the number of brides tying the knot in their 30s has exceeded the number of those in their 20s in 2021. The much-beloved Blackpink will be back for this year's Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival, not only as the first K-pop group, but also as the first Asian act to headline the festival. The South Korean original series on Netflix, The Glory, also became the streaming service's most watched non-English TV series in the world. South Korean leader Yoon Suk Yeol is off on his first overseas tour of the new year. That's to UAE and Davos, Switzerland. The trip is meaningful in many ways that he'll be the first leader of either South Korea or the UAE to pay a state visit to the other countries since 1980. Our Moon Gan-young has more.
The economic diplomacy aspect of President Yoon's overseas tour this time can be summarized into 3 key words: UAE, attracting investment, and global solidarity.
President Yoon Suk Yeol's first foreign tour of the new year will take him to the United Arab Emirates and Switzerland from this weekend to next. And at the heart of it is summit-level economic diplomacy. Taking off on Saturday, Mr. Yoon's first stop will be Abu Dhabi for his first state visit as president, and a first to the West Asian country by a South Korean leader at the invitation of President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. There, he'll visit South Korean troops at the AK unit, some 130 combat soldiers there to train UAE Special Forces, and the Baraka nuclear power plant, Korea's first overseas nuclear power plant construction project that kicked off under a $20 billion contract won in 2009.
We plan to significantly strengthen South Korea-UAE strategic cooperation in nuclear power, energy, investment, and the defense industry. Not only that, by accompanying an economic delegation of some 100 South Korean businesses, we'll provide all the necessary support to help our firms make entry into the UAE market.
On the 17th, President Yoon flies to Zurich for a meeting with Koreans living in Switzerland, then to Davos clusters the next day for a meeting with the CEOs of major multinationals and to promote South Korea's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. And on the 19th, Yoon will deliver a special address at the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, which opens this year under the theme Cooperation in a Fragmented World. The president will wrap up his 8-day 2-nation tour with a visit to the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, a public research university which specializes in science and technology. As highlighted by the president himself, President Yoon plans to keep a salesman cap on more than anything else during this trip and on those planned for the rest of the year. Now, senior officials here at the presidential office say we can anticipate large-scale contracts and deals, especially in the defense industry, this tour around. Moon Gan-young, Arirang News.
Now let's turn to the COVID situation. South Korea once again made clear that border rules on travelers from China are solely for the public's health and safety. Now Beijing, in the meantime, continued to insist that the measures against its country are unfair. Our Song Yu-jin with more.
South Korea says it had no choice but to impose travel restrictions on China.
President Yoon Suk Yeol says the decision to suspend the issuance of short-term visas for Chinese nationals was solely to protect those here in the country. He has asked the foreign ministry to explain our position to China and said there is no reason for this to cause discomfort in our two countries' relations.
We prioritize the health and safety of people in South Korea. We're aware that the virus situation in China is getting worse, so we had to consider the possibility of a new virus wave or variant originating from China. We had to make this decision because we're one of the countries geographically closest to China.
On the same day, Beijing announced that it is also going to require transit visas for South Koreans passing through China on the way to other countries, something they'd previously been exempt from. This means transit visas will be needed for travelers staying through a Chinese airport for longer than 24 hours. A day earlier, Beijing announced that it was suspending the issuance of short-term visas for South Koreans, citing what it called Seoul's discriminatory entry restrictions against China. But the South Korean health authorities will decide whether to extend these travel rules after closely monitoring the virus situation both domestically and overseas. Currently, the testing requirements are set to remain until February and the suspension of short-term visa issuance for Chinese nationals until the end of January. Meanwhile, out of more than 5,600 travelers from China who received PCR tests upon arrival last week, almost 1 in 5 tested positive. The good news is that this rate has significantly dropped. It was over 30% early last week, but has fallen more than 10 percentage points after travelers were required to show a negative COVID-19 test result before departure starting last Thursday. And South Korea's overall number of COVID cases is also showing signs of declining. The daily number of infections last week averaged around 59,000, down almost 10% from the week before. The virus reproduction rate fell below 1 for the first time in 12 weeks, meaning each infected person is transmitting the virus to less than one other person. But the numbers of deaths and patients in critical condition are still high. The average number of deaths last week was 57 per day, while that of severely ill patients was almost 600. 송유진, Arirang News.
And on Friday, South Korea's central bank took yet another baby step during its first policy meeting of the new year with a conventional 25 basis point hike. Now, that raised key interest rates to 3.5%. Our Kim Hyun-sung with the details along with the economic outlook for the year.
The highest benchmark rate in more than 14 years. The Bank of Korea on Friday announced a raise of the base interest rate to 3.5%, a hike of 25 basis points. This is the central bank's 7th rate hike in a row, the longest consecutive set of rate raises ever. From last year to this Friday, the bank has raised rates by 250 basis points in total. But the central bank may not pivot anytime soon as it desperately tries to bring down inflation.
Before we're sure that prices are headed towards our expected levels, it's too early to discuss bringing down rates.
The governor forecast on-year inflation rates to come down to the 3% range by the end of this year. That's quite a step down from current rates, which have been running at 5% or higher for the past 8 months. But that's still not enough to hit the BOK's target rate, a healthy 2% inflation. The country is also facing weak growth. In 2 weeks, the quarterly GDP growth rate for the last 3 months of 2022 will be announced. The BOK governor worries that this report may bear some bad news.
The spread of COVID in China, the semiconductor industry looking weak, and the Itaewon crowd crush, these reasons, as well as economic indices not looking good for the fourth quarter, mean there's a high chance of negative growth.
Another curveball to South Korea's economy is the Federal Reserve's future rate hikes. U.S. interest rates are currently in the 4% to 4.25% range. But some experts forecast that the Fed could raise rates to 5% or higher. When the Fed raises rates, it may be in the interest of South Korea to follow suit, as a big wedge between the two numbers could drive foreign investors out of South Korea and bring down the Korean currency. The Monetary Policy Committee had to start the new year with some tough decisions as they face an economy weighed down by sluggish growth and price inflation. With some committee members suggesting more rate hikes to come, Friday's rate hike may not be the last we see this year. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
It's a new year, but no new good news for people's wallets here in South Korea. According to our Lee Dae-hyun, prices for daily necessities and food products at convenience stores are now becoming not so affordable.
South Korea is facing another wave of price rises at the start of 2023. Last year was mostly about processed food prices increasing, but now products ranging from daily necessities to fashion items have followed suit. Just a few purchases from convenience stores are becoming a huge burden for consumers. One major consumer goods company raised the prices of some of its products sold in convenience stores on the first day of this year. Powder laundry detergents are now up 18% to over $5. Dish soaps increased 15% to $3.70. Prices of shampoo and toothpaste jumped as high as 16%. A single can of Coca-Cola in a convenience store used to cost 1,900 won, or around $1.50. But in 2023, the price has now risen to $1.60, while another brand of cola, Pepsi, has seen its price increase by 16 cents. The price of canned coffee jumped 20% to 1,200 won, or almost $1. Processed food, too, has seen further price hikes.
I often go to a convenience store at my dorm. I used to buy ramyeon for my meal, but now it costs almost 2,000 won, so it makes me hesitant about buying one.
I recently have thought it would be better to buy things in large supermarkets than convenience stores, after seeing the price rises there.
And amid the recent milkflation phenomena, prices of dairy products are soaring. One major coffee shop franchise said it's inevitable to raise prices by 200 won, or 16 cents, for all items that include milk. Adding to this, fashion and luxury brands are also upping prices. A classic shoe brand company based in the U.S. raised the prices of its popular products in Korea by 10%. Some luxury brands like Chanel and Rolex are also raising the prices of their best-selling items, including perfume and watches, by more than 6%. One expert says an increase in public utility charges may also further contribute to rising consumer prices.
Experts are predicting that the government will raise utility charges. If these charges go up, companies that use energy like gas and electricity to produce their products and services will also raise the prices of their products too.
However, he added that as consumer prices are relatively stable compared to a year earlier, inflation may ease in 2023, but consumer prices may remain high for a while. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Are you looking to start the new year with healthy habits? Well, you might be interested in Veganuary. This is a global vegan campaign for the month of January. Our Kim Jung-shin has more.
Looking to change your diet in the new year? How about going vegan for 1 month? It's actually an international campaign with nearly 3 million people signed up. Dr. Tony Vanelli, head of communications at Veganuary, which organizes the campaign, says people are getting involved because they care about the environment.
So we know so much more now about the impact that animal agriculture is having on the planet, not just climate, which obviously gets a lot of attention, but on land use, which affects biodiversity.
It's a growing trend to care about the environment, health, and also animal welfare. In fact, the market for vegan products in South Korea has grown to $500 million, and globally it's at $20 billion. So South Korean companies are taking the challenge head on. The company Pulmuon, for example, has dived into the vegan restaurant business.
In central Gangnam, where tens of thousands of people live and work, this restaurant right here opened up last spring, serving only vegan dishes.
Customer favorites include the tofu cutlet and the plant-based bulgogi rice ball. Even the drinks on the menu are vegan approved. I asked the brand spokesperson about the secret behind the restaurant's popularity.
This restaurant aligns with the desire of younger consumers to spend money on their values, such as protecting the earth and tackling health issues.
Another South Korean company, CJ Jeiljedang, makes vegan versions of its best-selling items, one of which is dumplings. In the supermarket, vegan dumplings sell for about $4 a package. They're economical, so eating vegan is always an option. Dr. Vernelli says each person who tries going vegan contributes to a big difference to the environment.
Since we started 10 years ago, we've had over 2 million people take part. And we had scientists look at the impact that those 2 million people will have had. And together, it's a huge saving. So it's the carbon equivalent of over 1 million flights from London to Paris. So that's massive. So taken, as a community of people doing this, it really does have an impact.
Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
So glad to finish off with much of a relief. Our planet Earth's ozone layer is slowly healing. So hopes are high that it'll be fixed in about 40 years. Our Song Yoo-jin explains.
The Earth's ozone layer is on track for recovery. That's according to a report published by the United Nations Environment Program on Monday.
A UN-backed scientific panel confirmed that the phase-out of nearly 99% of banned ozone-depleting substances has succeeded in safeguarding the ozone layer, leading to a notable recovery of the ozone layer in the upper stratosphere and decreased human exposure to harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun.
The ozone layer is a thin part of the planet's atmosphere that absorbs most of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun. UV radiation can reach the Earth's surface if the layer is depleted, resulting in DNA damage, sunburn, and an increased risk of skin cancer. The report predicts that by 2040, the ozone layer above most parts of the world will have recovered to 1980 levels before the ozone hole was discovered by scientists in 1985. The Arctic will take around 5 more years to recover, while the Antarctic will see its ozone replenished in 26 years. That is, if protective efforts stay in place. One is the Montreal Protocol signed in 1987. The global agreement ratified by 198 parties regulates the consumption and production of ozone-depleting chemicals. This road to recovery also sets a good precedent for combating climate change. The Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization says, quote, "Our success in phasing out ozone-eating chemicals shows us what can and must be done as a matter of urgency to transition away from fossil fuels, reduce greenhouse gases, and so limit temperature increase. But there are still risks ahead. One is geoengineering, a large-scale intervention in the planet's natural systems to counteract climate change."
The panel also examined new technologies, such as geoengineering for the first time, and warned that of the unintended impacts on the ozone layer caused by methods like stratospheric aerosol injection.
Stratospheric aerosol injection is putting aerosols into the stratosphere, aiming to reduce climate warming by creating a cooling effect. But the report warns this could in reverse affect ozone production, destruction rates, and movement. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Seollal, or Lunar New Year's Day, is one of the most important national holidays here in South Korea, with its origin going back centuries. Now, to talk about shifts and trends in Seollal, we've invited our reporter Lee Dae-hyun here in the studio. Welcome, Dae-hyun.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So let's first talk about shifts and trends in Seollal. It sounds quite broad. So what would you like to start first?
Well, I would like to first point out that Seollal gift giving is what many South Koreans are having in mind right now. So during the holiday seasons, Koreans give or send gifts to their families and business partners to show their gratitude and and love. And these gifts seem to be becoming more diverse. One of the most popular 설날 gifts is fruit. These packages used to include more traditional fruit like apples and pears, but now more exotic ones like shine muscat grapes and apple mangoes are becoming more of a trend. One of Korea's major department stores, in fact, has prepared 설날 gift sets that include these hybrid fruits.
Right. Hybrid fruits sound interesting. It's good to have options. And also, I hear there's something special for the younger generation.
That's right, Tammy. Another interesting point, gifts targeting millennials and Gen Zs. So besides traditional beef sets and fruit packages, millennials and Gen Zs are seeking more special gifts. And fruit tea sets are among them. Shinsegae department store said their fruit-flavored black tea set was sold out just a month after its release, which is why they have prepared it again in 설날 gift set form. Premium cooking oil sets with attractive packaging are also gaining popularity among young people. And on top of this, South Korea's leading red ginseng brand reported that it's updating its online platform to communicate with Gen MZs to promote their events for the upcoming holiday, as more young people are looking for dietary supplements.
Right, you can't really go wrong with tea, right?
You're right. So, well, in my case, I personally like to have dietary supplements as health is one of the major interests for me nowadays. And also among parents, sales of kids' products are seeing a dramatic rise in terms of 설날 gift sets. One online shopping platform reported on Monday that in the first week of January, sales of stationery type goods increased 104% on year. Toys increased 66%, books 52%, and even pregnancy items rose 23%.
And growing up as a kid, I remember looking forward to New Year's gifts of cash. So let's talk about money.
Right, as you said, New Year's cash gifts, or also called as sebeton, is common here in Korea. So you receive gifts of money, share a message of New Year, and after giving, a formal bow of respect to elders. This tradition is now going digital. Kakao Pay, a digital wallet, is enabling users to wire cash gifts in a digital envelope with a message wishing them a happy new year. This means people are free from having to withdraw physical money from banks, but can still maintain the spirit and traditions of 설날. But with soaring inflation, cash gifts seem to be a burden for some people. So how much do you think is enough for sebeton, Tammy?
That's a very difficult question as a person who would have to give out sebeton soon.
That's true.
Maybe 50,000 Korean won, about $50.
Well, one recruitment company actually surveyed their employees about the biggest concern for the upcoming holiday, and topping the list was spending. They say cash gifts of 10,000 won are too little considering consumer prices these days, while 50,000 won, or around $40 is too much of a burden. Some are even calling for a 30,000 won banknote so that it won't be too embarrassing to give only 3 10,000 won bills.
I guess that's very nice of them. It is quite creative, but what about family gatherings? I mean, people here in South Korea and also around the globe have been prevented from gathering because of the pandemic. So what's the change now?
Right, as you said, there are no measures limiting private gatherings now since Chuseok, or Korean Thanksgiving, in 2022. Last year, during the Chuseok holiday, over 30 million people reportedly hit the road amid easing restrictions. But people are not only visiting their family in the country, as more are planning to travel abroad. One of the country's biggest travel agencies said, based on travel reservations made for this 설날 holiday season, demand for overseas travel increased over 7,000% compared to the same period a year earlier.
7,000, that's a lot.
Yeah, so it comes to around 15,000 people. It shows a recovery of 52% from a pre-pandemic level in 2020. According to the agency, Southeast Asian countries accounted for over half of the bookings, followed by Japan and European countries. Based on this trend, e-commerce platforms are releasing more travel packages, including domestic travel and staycations. These companies are even partnering with travel agencies during the season to provide discounts for these vacation packages.
Yeah, it's a really good chance for office workers like us to actually chill and spend time for ourselves during the holiday.
Right.
But there are still some people who are looking forward to bonding with their families, right?
You're right. Family gatherings for tare, which is a Confucian ritual to honor our ancestors, are commonly seen here during Seollal. So family gather to fill the tare table with more than a dozen dishes. Now, data released by Korea Price Research Center earlier this week shows that the cost of a tare table for a family of 4 rose 5.8% to over 254,000 won, or around $204. So with rising consumer prices, more people are simplifying these tare tables. Meal kits, a convenient food box containing fresh ingredients, and a recipe for preparing meals at home are helping.
Right, meal kits. I see them a lot in supermarkets near my house as well. But you're saying that maybe these meal kits can be used at tare table now?
Yes, it also reduces time and energy that people put into preparing food. In fact, retail companies actually have reported that they saw sales of these instant cooking kits increase during the last Chuseok holiday. Following the trend, large supermarkets are releasing meal kits and convenience food ahead of Seollal. These include traditional holiday food like ton or Korean-style pancake and green vegetable side dishes.
Yeah, I'm sure you know making ton or Korean pancake can be quite hectic.
It is hectic, yeah.
It's good to have. We have so many options in so much convenient and efficient way.
True.
All right, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That's all we have for this weekend's weekly news highlights. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.